February 16, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is how I saw the charts today. It looked like there was a big leg down, and inside the leg there was two legs, created a measured move, 1, 2. Then it created kind of like two legs up, but I also saw it as one big leg, then another sell-off, another smaller leg, and then another sell-off. So it was kind of whipsaw today, but it was surprisingly actually smooth price action, and I didn't find too many setups today. There was two areas of economic data, one at 5:30 Pacific Standard, which was the core PPI numbers, and then again at 7 o'clock, which is about right here, we see another big drop. That was where the preliminary consumer sentiment came out. And so it's just kind of these areas you have to be aware of. I didn't take any trades today, and I didn't really find too many setups. So I'm going to go through what I found. In the pre-market, it looked like it was going to be a range day because it opened, it kind of sat around the midline. It made this big leg up, had trouble breaking through, tried like 4 times, you can see. Then it kind of bounced off the EMA and then it crashed through. Then it tried to break through, make one attempt, and it started to push its way back up. So at this time, I thought it was going to be a range day. I don't have the red channel drawn yet. When prices start to open, I did suspect there was some kind of maybe trend line here, but I wasn't really ready to call it a channel, even though it looked like it fit here and here. But I wasn't going to use this as a basis for any particular trade yet. I just needed to see more price action because it is rather large. We do have a new high here. Technically, you have a second entry, no, first entry long here. You have a second entry long here, but this isn't a very good entry and not a very good setup because it's a bad signal bar below the EMA. Prices then chop around. I don't really like anything that I see so far. It is starting to trend down, and it is trying to hug the EMA. So I did draw this trend line at the bottom first, and then I drew this top one, and then later I cleaned it up. And this is what I actually saw. I saw a new low here. I saw first entry short, pull back. Now this hasn't made a second entry short yet, but I thought this was a possible trade. It does touch this down channel a third time now, and it fits really nicely at the bottom because I actually found the bottom first before I found the top. And when I saw this, it didn't create the second entry short just yet, but it looks like it's on its way to create the second entry short. There's enough room for a quick scalp, and it's a pretty decent signal bar. I didn't take this trade though, and it looked like if you just put it at the same lows here, you would have gotten filled. And then based upon the strength of the EMA holding prices down, as well as this other key entry point, it's a rather decent, I think, setup. And then of course you would have gotten your scalp here. And prices continue moving down. It breaks out of the yellow channel and falls into what I think is this green channel. And it pushes up. And there, you do have a first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short right here. But you're right here at the 7 o'clock economic data, the core PPI. So you don't really want to kind of be in a trade here because this could have easily just spiked the other way. There's no real good way to tell which way it's going to go. Plus, the next few candles afterwards are very fast reacting because it's 7 o'clock and 6 seconds Pacific Standard. This is only 10 seconds later, and this is another 12 seconds later. So these are forming very quickly. So to try to take a trade or make a decision, a well thought out decision during this time is kind of a crapshoot. I also saw at this point, it did create one leg down, pull back, and it created another leg down here. So even though I'm not going to take a trade, I just kind of was aware that there might be some kind of support being respected here. Prices did look like it's starting to respect this price, the support right here. And this is only about the 4 minutes after the economic data came out. So now it's okay to start, I think, looking for setups again. There is some kind of resistance being respected here. There's not really a triple test, but it's like 1 touch, 2 touch. Now, whether you count it as a third touch rejection or not, it's kind of up to you. I only really count as 1, 2 tests. Now this is clearly a third test, but this isn't a good signal bar to go short on because it looks like it has a lot of momentum pushing it up. And then it starts to break through. So it keeps chopping around. At this point, I was wondering if there was going to be some kind of reaction off this red down channel because it kind of fit 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, and it was gradually moving back up. So when this happened, I was wondering if there's going to be a rejection coming back down. But it looked like it just kind of oscillated sideways before it started moving up on this orange channel. No trades that I could see. So it starts moving into this range, where I think is a range, because I saw this as a pretty good support. The bottom here, I wasn't 100% sure. I actually had it a little bit higher at one time, so it looked like it fit better as a range. So it broke out, and I actually thought this might have been another trade because you do have a new low here, a first entry short, pull back. It's about to create a second entry short, but it's also a failed breakout. So this signal bar closed really, really bearish. I'm not really that concerned about the EMA, even though it's kind of slicing through, because I'm thinking it's switching over to range rules. And it did break out of this orange channel and made one attempt up. This could be the second attempt up here, and it's about to fail. Now, if you're really, really dialing it in, you could argue that it's actually one attempt up, and this could be the second attempt up, because technically you do have a second entry long here, but I saw it in a bigger visual. First push up, pull back, second push up, and it could start pushing back down. And it looks like if you did enter this, you would have gotten filled and likely gotten a quick scalp out of it. I didn't take it though. As I said, it is a triple test potentially here. It's just a little unclear. It feels, because you think it might move back into this red channel, but it's already kind of drifting sideways. So I wasn't too sure if it was really going to push back down. But in hindsight, I think if I was more experienced, this probably was a trade here. And it starts pushing up. I draw this yellow trading range trend channel here. I first drew this and I drew this. This actually evolved throughout the day because different things look like it fit differently at different times, because I actually had this a little bit sharper and more aggressive here. But then it broke out and it started doing this weird stuff. So then I redrew it. I came with this orange one and finally settled on this yellow one. Prices then continue moving. I thought there was a small trading range here, but then it broke out. So I thought this was a failed breakout at one time. Came back down. Then I liked what I saw here. I said, this is clearly some kind of support. Made one attempt down, two attempts down, three attempts down, and now it's rejecting. So it looks like it's in some kind of trading range. The EMA is coming into play, but there's no clean trade set up here. So now it kind of rejects off the top. So I was thinking, okay, this is probably some kind of trading range. It had two confirmations. It rejected hard back down. But you would think, okay, well, why didn't take this trade here? Well, it's only two touches at this point. So it's, it could still be one push up, pull back. This could have one quick tick down and then flash up. So it's hard to really trust this yet. I have a suspicion it's a trading range, but I haven't confirmed it yet. So it's too early to try to take a trade and jump on. So it doesn't really quite make it to the other side. And now it's, touching and kind of touching the top side of this range. I'm very interested now. I'm thinking that maybe there's going to be a short here because I saw this as a new low. It's a first entry short pullback. I need a break below this to be confirmed as a short because it looks like it hit the top side. It looks like it might come back down, but it doesn't. Once this broke out, I kind of was more cautious now because after this big sell-off, two legs down, the measure move's been made. I was thinking it could be one leg up, consolidation, and make a second leg up. So potentially a measure move that looks like this. So there's still a little bit of more distance for it to go. So definitely wasn't thinking short. Wasn't quite prepared to take a long yet either, even though it was a triple test here. And it looked like if you try to go short, it would have kind of stopped you out. And then it felt risky to go long at the highs. And it falls into this trading range. So it fits pretty well this yellow channel at this point. You technically only have a first entry long here. Now this is what I call a hidden second entry short. So it kind of looks like it's in a trading range. So it actually has a new low here. This low is actually lower than all these guys previously. So this is technically a new localized low. So it's a first entry short pullback. It creates a second entry short that's hidden all within this candle because it also broke below and pushed below. So it's after the break of this green channel and made one attempt up. And then, so it's a clear break outside. It's debatable whether it closed outside or not, but you did have the break and it did kind of make a push up. If it was any doubt, there was a second push up here, or if you count it as a first push up. Nevertheless, it failed and it pushed back and closed and engulfed this previous candle. Now, it's a really decent signal bar because it's all kind of contained in here, but I was weary of something like this because I think it was like counter trend for sure. It's bouncing off the top of here, so you could say it's about pushing back down, but I was also debating whether it's in this range. And from here to here, there's not enough room to confidently scalp out before you potentially hit some kind of support. So I just had to kind of leave it alone. It looked like it would have worked. So now EMA is clearly kind of coming into play a little bit. Breaks out of this channel, breaks out of this channel and out of this range, kind of consolidates in this second range. There's a potential fail breakout here. Again, the EMA is holding. I'm kind of interested in seeing if there's some kind of setup now. The new high, it's a first entry long right here, pullback. It's about to create a second entry long. So when it creates a second entry long, and then it created a failed second entry long. So just a couple of things I want to point out. This is like what I would call an almost setup. Now the second entry long, this is a really good signal bar. The problem that was giving me conflicting views is it's potentially at the bottom of this trading range. So you're thinking, I definitely want to buy at the lows of the trading range, but it did come from an overshoot. So after it overshoots one attempt up, the second attempt is hard to trust, and it broke below, but it closed just right inside. So it's a little debatable if there's enough strength to push back up. Now, typically in a trading range, you don't really pay attention to the EMA, but this trading range isn't really, it's more of a consolidation congestion area. So the EMA is starting to come into play because you're seeing that it was support previously, and previously it had a little bit of trouble breaking through. Then it finally decisively broke through, and even the next candle, this guy wasn't strong enough to close above it or close above this guy. So it felt a little bit dicey. Then when this candle formed, I said, okay, definitely it's a failure because it's obvious. First entry long pullback, second entry long, and then it failed. So I'm thinking, okay, well, if you want to go short, there's a risk that you're not going to have enough room before I hit the bottom of this trading trend channel that I have kind of established. Now, whether this trend channel really is valid or not, I wasn't 100% sure because it didn't really have clean touches here. I mean, you could argue there are some touches, but you'd rather see something very clean like this green one here, or, this yellow one here. So it's a little bit iffy whether this is going to cause a bounce or not. So I had to leave it alone, but it'd be what I consider an almost setup. Like if you took the long, I think you got trapped because you're thinking, well, obviously it's a bullish day. But then it's hard to convince myself on such a bullish trend up to take that long. But it's also hard to say to take the short because even though it had an overshoot and it's pushing back down, it's just a little confusing. So I had to leave it alone. Prices then kind of chop sideways. Then it starts pushing down. So EMA is coming back into play and is keeping prices down now. Pushes on this green channel down, kind of consolidates now. It starts getting a little confusing here. It's just kind of these big candles, big moves, and it starts moving back up on this yellow channel. I'm thinking it's a resumption of this push up. So it was a push up, it was a break, push up, break, and now it wants to go back and test the highs of this larger yellow channel. It pushes up and it does meet and make its new high, but there's nothing here except first entries. Pushes up, it kind of consolidates. It's breaking out of this yellow channel. So I'm thinking I might want to test the highs here. It made kind of one weak attempt here, but nothing really to consider. Then it starts breaking through the EMA. So I'm thinking it's not going to even try to test this highs anymore. It's kind of refocus on maybe there's a shift or reversal. Technically, you have a new high here. It's a first entry long pullback. Second entry long here, but it just feels so far away from the setup to even count these as actual legs or attempts. So it's just kind of like there's technically a second entry long here, but it's nothing to get a trade ready. It breaks out of this green down channel pretty aggressively. I don't know why this happened. I couldn't find any news items or any really valid news items of why this would happen. It's a new low, first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short, but this is in the middle of nowhere. When you see this and you see this, it's kind of a doji, so you wouldn't even have an order prepared, or at least I wouldn't, because it's not really giving me any bias. It's too far from the EMA. It's a little iffy. I did have this drawn, but it's hard to trust this because that's the only thing you have going for it. And prices kind of consolidate. It falls into what I think is this trading range, and we're dancing around the pre-market lows. So it was just kind of interesting, just something to keep in mind, but nothing yet to take a trade. So you do have a new high, first entry long, second entry long. This is a terrible signal bar to go long. Now, it was debatable whether this is the bottom of the range, but I also thought maybe it could have been down here, in which case it doesn't quite touch, so I kind of left it here. Nevertheless, I didn't really like this setup. Then I also saw this as, you know, a triple test here. So it went into this range, it went one push down, technically as a second test, but I saw as one touch, two touch, third touch, rejection, and it's a higher low from this previous low. It's a really good signal bar bouncing off the bottom of the range. There's enough room to hit the top of the range. So I thought this is actually a decent trade. Looks like if you got it, you would have gotten a quick scalp out of it. If you kept your stop down here, you would have been safe, and then most likely get a 2 point scout if you're going for two. Then chops around and breaks through again. So I'm thinking it's one leg down consolidation, might be a second leg down, but it's also getting very late in the day. And at this point, I hadn't taken any trades and I was just staring at this all day. And the price action was it was kind of smooth in that there wasn't crazy whipsaws, but it didn't provide very many setups. So at this point, I was just kind of like, okay, I'm thinking there's going to be a no trade day, and I was just okay with that. And prices move down, moves in the last 10 minutes, and it just kind of creates all this whipsaw action. And in the last 10 minutes, I definitely don't want to take a trade. It's because it feels like if I was so disciplined before not taking a trade, and then suddenly to just haphazardly take a trade, if it works out, it would probably reinforce a bad habit. It'd be a kind of a desperation move. And if I didn't get a green trade in the last 10 minutes, I would have just kicked myself, wondering why I stayed so disciplined throughout the day and then take a haphazard trade at the end and enter the weekend, long weekend, because there's no trading on Monday, enter the long weekend on a red. So decide not to take the trade. So hopefully that was helpful.